Alrighty, folks, if you are a long-term ORAT fan, you have seen this gentleman. If you are new to the channel, you may not know who this is, but he's going to bring us some money-saving things out of the big, beautiful bill. It does look like bonus depreciation, 100% bonus depreciation will be coming back. We're going to define it. We're going to talk about why it is such a tool for real estate investors. But David, man, how you doing?
I am well. It's good to see you again. It's been a while.
Absolutely. Well, do us a favor. Let's assume somebody watching this doesn't know what you do. So let's tell them that first, and then we'll get into some of the vocabulary.
Okay. What I'm doing every day, all day long, is providing cost segregation studies for real estate investors, and traveling around the country and speaking on it because it's really not very well understood. How it works, what it is, those kinds of things. There's so many erroneous ideas out there about it. So between social media and running around the country and talking to real estate investors, I'm trying to be a one-man wrecking crew to all of those misconceptions on cost segregation.
There you go, man. So this is actually something that I leveraged. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. You helped me do a cost seg on a duplex, which allowed me to save some significant money. Why don't we define what a cost seg is first? Then we'll talk about bonus depreciation coming back. Let me take a novice definition of a cost segregation, and let me know where I go off. So as a real estate investor, we all know that we get to leverage depreciation, right? Depreciation is a non-cash expense, right? We get to write off on residential properties. I think it's 28.5 years, in commercial 39. Am I right?
27.5 on residential.
27.5. I always mess that up.
Except
so anyways,
for short-term rentals.
Yeah, except for short-term rentals. And obviously, it is important to highlight that it's not the purchase price in my example of a duplex. It's the purchase price X land. Land is not depreciated. So people always need to remember that. And then there's this thing called straight line, and then there's cost segregation. So again, in my example of a duplex, let's say I bought it for 150. Let's say it's worth 150K for the land. I could, divide 100 by 27.5, and that would be my, my depreciation expense, all else being equal. Cost segregation allows you to go in and go, hey, all this stuff inside a house doesn't depreciate at the same rate, right? Some things are, I forget, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, something like that. And that's really what your study does, right? You go inside a piece of real estate, a house, a duplex, a quad, an apartment building, whatever, and you basically break it down into its components, and you identify what what depreciates faster than in residential case 27.5 years. Am I right so far?
So far, you're pretty good. It's 5, 7, and 15 years, but straight line depreciation is the easy way to do it. And that's the way most tax professionals do it because that's how they know how to do it.
Exactly.
But the tax code says that anything inside the building that's not structural, so it's not a permanent part of the structure, can be depreciated at 5 years. And typically any land improvements can be depreciated at 15 years. So, your landscaping, if you put in a hot tub or a pool outside, or you do all of that stuff, can be depreciated quicker than the rest of the house, the structure of the house. And by shortening the period of depreciation, it increases the deductions.
Yeah, it increases the deduction in the earlier part of the years. Which because you're still, in my example, depreciating the 100 grand. You're just doing a lot of it earlier, which
you normally need the money more.
Exactly. So again, cost segregation is legal. It's been leveraged for decades. What really made it popular and why I executed it with you a couple of years ago was we had this notion of bonus depreciation, which allowed us to take, what was it? You tell us what were we able to roll up into year one deductions?
Well, at the time, bonus depreciation came to us through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act back in 2017, or at least 100% bonus came to us then. And what that said was, and the reason they did it was to incent people to invest in real estate, and it worked like crazy.
It certainly did.
So from the time the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act came into being, which was in October of 2017, through the end of 2022, you could take all of that 5-year property, 7-year property, and 15-year property 100% the first year.
Yeah, and that was the magic. So again, you think about $100,000, again, 150 purchase, 50K land, 100K. I forget what my example was, but I was basically able to take something like 24 or 25,000 bucks into that year one, which was significant savings. And this appears to be something that at least passed the House and is coming back, bonus depreciation.
Well, it sure looks like it. Last year, there was a bill before the House and Senate that would have brought back 100% bonus depreciation during the Biden administration. Passed the House bipartisan, no big deal. It was bundled with some other things that kind of got it hung up in the Senate. Plus, the Senate was working on a whole bunch of other things, and they never got to vote on it. They never brought it up for a vote. So when the big, beautiful bill happened, which reinstates the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, 100% bonus depreciation is part of that. It passed the House already. It's heading to the Senate. Optimistic voices say it's going to be approved by the 4th of July. I'm not so sure.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of folks speaking out against the additional 3 trillion or 4 trillion or whatever it is deficit.
They have a number of things that are people in the Senate are fighting over. Okay, and it'll be amendments to the bill.
Sure.
Ultimately, I would say 99.9% chance they're going to come to an agreement. They're going to pass the bill, and 100% bonus depreciation will be back.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to assume that something gets passed. And again, if Biden administration approved the bringing back the depreciation, it sounds like that piece is going to make it to whatever ultimately lands.
They know that there needs to be something to boost real estate investment in the United States. And I think everybody pretty much agrees that 100% bonus worked out really well. I know there's one senator that's really pulling for it to be permanent, but because of the way it passed in the House and the way it'll probably have to pass in the Senate, they have to put a time limit on it.
Sure.
So the 100% bonus would be back through the end of 2029, retroactively starting to January the 20th of 2025.
Yep.
All the way through the end of 2029. That was the day that President Trump was inaugurated. So,
Yeah. So it's really important to understand that, and really why that January 25th and 20th, and backdating is, it actually is when the units go into service.
Exactly. Not when you do the study. That's a big misconception. It's not when you do the study. It's because I've had a lot of people call me and say, well, I did it in 2024 and I only got 60% bonus. What if I refile? Can I, after they pass it, can I get it? No, because it has to do with when the property went into service. If that's a long-term rental, it's basically whenever you advertised it for rent, you were ready to rent it. If it's a short-term rental, the IRS wants to see at least a couple of bookings in the year to make sure you're really going to do it as a short-term rental.
Right. Exactly. So, one of the things that, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say cost segregation in and of itself without bonus depreciation is still a great deal.
Oh, yeah.
Right now for 25, we're at 40% bonus, but you get most of the rest of it in the first 5 years anyway, because of all the 5-year property. So it's still a good deal. People need to know that even if we have no bonus depreciation, it's still going to work. Yeah. But with 100% bonus, it's a no-brainer.
It's tasty, yeah. Because one of the things that, again, I was thinking about, you and I were coming together. I wanted to run a strategy by you, just to make sure I'm thinking the right way.
Okay.
So one of the things that I would look at doing is doing some 1031 exchanges out of older properties where my basis is very low into newer construction stuff. So, for example, I'm just going to use fake numbers. I sell a house for 300 grand. I buy a house for 400 grand. Let's assume the land is worth 100 grand in the new example. So the structure is worth 300 grand in my new purchase. I would, assuming I put it into service, this new purchase, I could run a cost seg and all of that on the new building. It doesn't change because I did a 1031 exchange. Is that
It
correct?
does.
Oh,
No,
it
it
does.
does.
Okay,
Yeah.
what happens?
So if you're going to do, when you do a 1031 exchange, we have the new property and the relinquished property.
Mm-hmm.
The new property, all we can do a study on is the increase in value.
Oh, so the delta.
Right. So my recommendation is, if you're going to do a 1031 exchange, first run a cost segregation study on the relinquished property.
Okay.
And then when you do the 1031 exchange, do one on the new property, and then you'll have the whole thing. You don't want to do a cost segregation study if you're about to sell the property,
Okay.
unless you're doing a 1031 exchange, because there's
Got
no depreciation recapture in a 1031 exchange. You're basically kicking the can down the road. So, you know, and you can even do a 1031 exchange, or you can even do a cost segregation on the old property after you've sold it.
Oh, wow.
Even as long as you have access for us to get in and do a site visit,
Right.
we can still do it.
Yeah, because I think there's going to be a lot of folks that look at this as an opportunity to kind of upgrade their portfolios. Again, the cost segregation, bonus depreciation, that's real money. Like if you're
real
saving,
money.
you're saving 50K, and then your tax burden's 35%. That's $20,000 you don't have to write.
Well, the genius of it really is the time value of money.
Right.
Because if you get that money today and you put it to work, by the end of the 27 and a half year, you're going to have a whole lot more money than you had, to start. So I always say to people, if I was going to give you $1 million, do you want me to give it to you now, or do you want me to give it to you over the next 27 and a half years?
Exactly.
Well, of course, if you're thinking you're going to say, give it to me now, that's why so many people take the cash option when they play the lottery.
Right.
Because they understand that having it now, $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the other thing that you've been spending a lot of time educating people on is the whole difference between passive and active management. Obviously, some people call this the short-term rental loophole. I've heard it referred to. Why don't you talk about that and how you're educating people on that?
Okay. It's a complicated subject, and I can always shed more information for people. If they give me a particular scenario, I'm happy to do that. But real estate investing is always considered a passive activity to start.
Correct.
Which means that the depreciation can only be used against your passive income, which is, for most people, their rental income.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If you have a savvy CPA, that savvy CPA is going to come up with a lot of deductions on your passive income so that you don't show a whole lot on the books.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a long-term rental and you do a cost segregation study, it is automatically passive unless you are, in the eyes of the IRS, a real estate professional and materially participating in your property. Mm-hmm. So let's define those. A real estate professional spends 50%, at least 50% of their working hours in real estate deals and transactions. Not necessarily deals, real estate business and transactions. And it's over 750 hours in the year. So that's not very easy to accomplish unless you're spending a lot of time doing real estate investing or other real estate business. To materially participate, you must spend 500 hours on your properties or 100 hours, but more than anybody else. So I generally tell people the easy way to think of it is, if you've got a W-2 job that's not real estate, you're probably not a real estate professional.
No.
If you have a management company that's doing all the work on your property, you're not materially participating. If it's a short-term rental, they call it the short-term rental loophole, but I don't like that because it's not really a loophole. It's in the tax code.
Yeah, it's the rules of the road. Yeah.
That's right. The short-term rentals are treated like a commercial property.
Mm-hmm.
And you do not need to be a real estate professional. You only need to be materially participating in your property. Now, if it is indeed passive, there are some passive loss limitations to how you can use it. So if you create a passive loss, if your modified adjusted, and we're getting into the weeds, your modified adjusted gross income is less than $100,000, you can deduct up to 25,000 of your passive losses. If it's between 100 and 150,000, for every 1,000 that it goes up, the amount that you can deduct goes down 2,000. So by the time you hit 150,000, you can no longer apply passive losses to your active income.
Gotcha.
So is it a good idea for somebody who's going to have it as passive? Yeah, sometimes it is a good idea. And sometimes it's not a good idea. And that's where I come in. We'll talk about your situation. I can tell you whether it's going to be a good idea for you or not for you. And you know this because we've talked about a lot of my clients before. I won't let them do something that's not in their best interest.
Right.
It's just not right.
Yeah.
And my reputation is more valuable than that. So I want to make sure that if they're going to do it, it's going to benefit them. And you can't always, I hate to say this on the air, but you can't always ask your tax professional. A lot of them don't know.
Oh yeah.
I've had
you got to
professionals. That's some of the groups that I teach around the country. And we've had to actually walk them through how to apply it to the tax return. Now, if you've got a CPA who specializes in real estate and is very conversant with real estate, they're going to know. But we work with CPAs and tax professionals all day long. So that's passive active. I just did a video on it that'll be on my YouTube channel soon.
Nice.
So yeah, it gets a little more into the details of it, but
well, one of the things you've proven over time is you are truly a friend to real estate investors. Do us a favor, highlight your YouTube channel, but more importantly, what number should they reach out to you if they have questions or talk about planning?
Questions, a free estimate. If you want a free estimate on your property, all of that kind of stuff, you can call me at 770-224-8504.
Very cool. And what is your YouTube channel? People want to check out these educational videos.
The YouTube channel is the name of my company, which is Cash Flow Strategies, Inc., all run together. Nice. And there's stuff on everything real estate and plenty more, because I also work with non-real estate investors on improving their cash flow. So yeah, but there's more than you ever want to know about real estate and taxes. So
this has been fun, man. We'll stay in touch, see what happens in the Senate, and we'll have you back if this goes live. David, thank you so much.
We'll have a celebration.
There you go. All right, buddy. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.